Partners come and go, always with a twirl.
Providing music you will enjoy. JM Production performers will brighten up your stage. Condominiums and residential communities, nightclubs and restaurants that want to provide top quality singers and entertainers for their social events, banquets, celebrations, and their customers use JM Productions to ensure that they have an uplifting and beautiful event. Now, tune in for the show.
The lights, dancing for my life.
And welcome, welcome, welcome. Don't stop in the music. That applause either gets louder or more vicious or bigger.
Bigger, bigger.
Bigger,
What
bigger.
happens with a bigger audience, you get bigger applause.
Is that what it is? You got a bigger
Yes.
audience. Okay.
I'm excited tonight. We've got Jeffrey Weinstein, and we're talking Don't Stop the Music of JM Productions. Got a great guest joining us for this evening's show here on WWNN 95.3 FM, 96.9 FM, and 1470 AM. This is definitely a throwback before my time, so I think it's
It was
before your
before my
time.
time, too, but
But
I
you just
watched.
remember watching?
I watched.
It's pretty exciting.
There was a lot of stuff I learned, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But let's get Jeff on the set so that Jeffrey can make his introductions.
Well, we have a very unusual special guest this morning for the show. Came all the way down from heaven. Really? All the way down from heaven. And many of you remember him. Want to welcome George Burns.
All right, you can take it back. Thank you very much.
Holy cow. I gotta
Wow.
tell you, he even walks like him.
Well,
My goodness gracious.
I got to tell you, when you get into character, because talking to George before the introduction is totally different than when he actually walks on once you get back into who you truly are.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing to finally get to meet you.
Well, thank you very much. It was a long trip down here from heaven. You know.
Yeah, how
I
you
bet it
feeling?
was.
Well, I think I got the bends.
The bend.
Yeah,
We got the angels among us tonight.
that's right. That's
I
right.
got to ask,
Yes.
how'd you meet Jeffrey?
I met Jeff. Well, Jeffrey's a major producer agent down here, and he sends me out to all the different places to perform, and that's how I met him.
Now, you had a lot of different things that went on during your career.
Yes,
And you had what they used to call the burn stare.
the Burns stand.
That was the burn stare, and there it is. And that's the burn stare. And that thing, it would it's like scratching your head, like, really? Did you just say
Well,
that?
this is the Burns stare is like my good friend Jack Benny, you know, when he used to do this. That was the Benny stare. It was just a way of taking a little time to get into the next sentence, the next word that I'm gonna speak, and that was the Burns stare. Yeah.
Was most of your material from the cuff, or did you rehearse it?
Everything was rehearsed. There was not. I've never done a show where I haven't rehearsed it over and over and over again. Every word, every time, all the timing, all the music has always been 100% rehearsed. Except, of course, here today where I'm ad-libbing and I don't know what to say.
So everything was always scripted.
Yes, and I always wrote all of the scripts, all of the jokes. Gracie was a wonderful actress, and she was able to play it very straight and play that part of the dumb wife, but she was a brilliant actress, and that's how she pulled that off.
How many years did you work with her?
We worked for 40 years. I was Gracie Allen's straight man for 40 years. We were married for 36 years of that during that time.
Wow. What was it like being married and working together?
Well, you know, we when we first got together, we made it. It was very simple. We had a split. The split was 40-60. I got 60%. She got 40%, and that was great from a financial perspective. but we worked very well together. She let me do my thing. She was not as vociferous as I was. She wasn't interested in getting in front of the camera as much as I was. When she finally got tired, she retired. She was very happy to go into retirement. It was enough for her. But inside of me, there was something that said, let's get up on that stage. Let's perform. Let's do let that audience work with me. And I love audiences. Audiences determine just exactly how my show's going to go. If I tell a joke and they don't laugh, then I got a problem. If I sing a song and they don't applaud, I got a problem. So I time everything with my audiences. My audiences applaud. I don't go into the next line until the applause is over. I don't go into the next song until the applause is over. As a matter of fact, I just did a show out in New Orleans about 2 weeks ago. It was a lovely show, and they had a wonderful sound man there. And he didn't know, I should have told him it was my fault, he didn't know that don't put the song on until they stop applauding from the joke. So he kicked the music on, and I didn't know where we were. But that was a great show. We had a wonderful show in New Orleans. It was Here's Johnny show, the Johnny Carson show. Mm-hmm. And the Johnny Carson fellow was terrific. I was on with Joan Rivers and Dolly Parton. Now, Dolly Parton, there's a pair to work with. I just made that up, Jeffrey.
I figured you just made that up.
I just made that up. And so that was a wonderful show. We had a great audience at the Jefferson Performing Arts Center in New Orleans.
What made you get into being a comedian and acting and getting in front of the stage?
As George Burns, I always wanted to be an actor. From the time I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I started at about 6, 7 years old with 3 of my friends. We were called the quartet. We had a quartet. And we would harmonize on the street corners of New York. We would sing songs. People would throw coins in the hat that we passed around. Sometimes they'd throw the coins in, sometimes they'd steal the hat. But one of the songs, let me sing you a song. It went like this. Good night, little girl, good night. I hope you get home all right. The martinis were fine and your kisses divine. And I thought that by midnight you'd surely be mine. I was wrong, little girl, I was wrong. Run along, little girl, run along. If I couldn't win you with all the gin that was in you. Good night, little girl, good night. Sang that song when I was 6 years old.
When you were 6?
I didn't know what it meant then.
Goodness.
I don't know what it means now. But but that's how my career started. And then I started as a small-time vaudeville actor. I played nothing but the smallest, the dingiest theaters that you could possibly ever imagine. And but every time I went to Philadelphia, I'd always stay at the same little hotel. It was called Hurley's Hotel. All the small-time actors would stay there, and the reason was a waitress by the name of Trixie Hicks, beautiful waitress. And every time you ordered breakfast, which consisted of coffee and donuts, Trixie would bring it up to your room. She always stayed. She liked coffee.
She liked the coffee.
She liked coffee. One day I ordered breakfast.
Delivery.
One day I ordered breakfast. Trixie brought it up to my room. I said, Trixie, you in the mood for a little coffee? She said, of course. So I locked the door. About 15 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. That was very bad. You see, I was in the middle of my second cup. When I was 18, I could have 3, 4 cups a day. The guy banging on the door was Hurley, the owner of the hotel. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. In the adjoining room was another actor. His name was Jack Milo. And I knocked on Milo's door. He opened the door. I threw Trixie into his room, closed the door. I let Hurley in. He walked around, didn't find Trixie, and he left. Then I knocked on Milo's door. He wouldn't give me back Trixie.
I bet you wouldn't.
So I called the front desk, and I told the front desk, I said, Trixie Hicks is in Jack Milo's room. There's a big commotion in the room, out in the hallway, and all of a sudden, Milo's room door opens, and he throws Trixie back into my room. The story has a sad ending, though. By the time I got Trixie back, my coffee had turned cold. I enjoy that story. I only wish I enjoyed coffee now as much as I did when I was 18.
On the air, we have George Burns in studio here today.
With Jeffrey Weinstein of JM Productions.
Correct. It's amazing how, Jeffrey, you keep pumping them out. This, to me, I remember growing up watching this particular actor, mannerisms. Because in the old days, mannerisms are very, very important for delivery. It's a lost art nowadays. You know, we talked about having stage presence. And this is stage presence. It's that whole delivery that Madonna used to do in the later stages and everything else. J-Lo still does some of it, but it's changed. The game has changed. What I loved about George Burns is that he always treated the wife with respect. He always had tongue-in-cheek, always.
Yes.
But it was done tastefully.
But can you imagine working with your wife and then going home being with your wife? It's a
Did that once.
24/7. How'd that work out for
Not
you?
too good. At 36 years, I can tell you that.
But that's remarkable in of itself.
Listen, it's not easy. Every once in a while, Jack Benny and I would get into trouble. We'd go off and, meet some other nice young ladies. One day, I hung my jacket after one of those visits to with another young lady. I hung my jacket in the closet. Oh no, I left it on the sofa, and the cleaning girl, she took my jacket to hang it up in the closet, and there was a contraceptive in it, so she put it on the night table in our bedroom. Well, let me tell you something. That contraceptive cost me a mink coat.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
I'm pretty sure that.
I am pretty sure that is exactly it. And Jeffrey's just sitting there laughing. So Jeffrey, how do you like working with George?
It brings back a lot of memories. I'm old enough to remember listening to George and Gracie on the radio before TV. And then, of course, they had their television show, George Burns and Gracie Allen show. And that was before color, so it was in black and white. And my father and my mother and I used to watch the show. And when I found out that I was going to be on today, and I made a special call to heaven to see if I could get him back for the interview.
You
And
must
he
have
said
some
he'd
good
love
connections.
love to come down for a little while anyway.
There you go.
Well, I was very fortunate, as you mentioned, the George Burns show, the radio show, the television show, and after Gracie left me, things didn't go that well. But then, when I was about 78 years old, I started a new career. I became a dramatic actor.
Dramatic.
Dramatic actor. It was the Sunshine Boys with Walter Matthau.
Oh.
Remember that movie?
Oh my God.
Yes, and
Yes,
and I won the Academy Award, Best Supporting Actor.
you did.
Yes, you may applaud. You're not applauding.
Applaud.
Applaud.
What?
Applaud. So you won the Academy Award for Best
Listen,
Supporting
uh,
Actor.
He did.
Fred,
He won
thank you very much for that gracious applause.
The Sunshine Boys were Walter Matthau. no?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
It was in 1972?
Sometime in that time frame. I was 78. I was born in 96. So 78, 96, and 72, sure. That's
I went to see that movie
Yes.
with PS 109 took us.
With who?
As a trip, my school, my
Elementary school?
Okay.
took us to see the Sunshine. And the funny thing about that whole movie is that I saw it not once, I saw it 3 times. Because the other classes went too. And I snuck in to see it a 3rd time. It was hilarious. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Wow.
Walter
That's
Matthau.
amazing. Nice
Great
job.
actor. Great actor. And then when I was 82, I played God.
That one I remember.
I did that without makeup.
You did it without makeup?
Without makeup.
I didn't use makeup, but that was really the second movie. The Oh God movie was the movie that propelled me to get back on stage and start doing stage shows and walk-ons and being a comedian again and really coming into my own. And what I did during those shows in my 80s and 90s up until I was almost 100 was I talked about, in those shows, I talked about my family, I talked about my career, I talked about Gracie, I talked about my sister Goldie and the whorehouse she ran. And well, we're not allowed to use that language on the show.
Well, you already did, so don't worry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll retract it.
But let's talk about your family.
Yes.
You've been acting since you were 6, 7 years old.
Yes.
Back in the day, they were supportive of, right? You're supposed to go out, make a living, support the family.
Exactly. That's what I started doing when I was 6 years old. I went out. I worked in Rosenzweig's drugstore with those 3 guys that I harmonized with, and I had to make a living all those years. We were very poor. My father passed away when I was just a young boy, and so all of us had to go to work. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on Rivington Street in New York, the Lower East Side, and but that was nice. It was my mother, my father, and I in that nice little apartment, along with my 4 sisters and 6 brothers.
Holy
And
smokes.
but they all worked, and everybody had to go to work, and you know we made it. The whole family made
12
it.
of you in a 1-bedroom apartment.
That's right. It gets
A walk up on the
it
third
was
floor.
it was a walk up and a wake up.
Wow.
But that's how, you know, there was I didn't like my real name. My real name is Nathan Birnbaum. I didn't like the name Nathan, so I changed it to George after my brother. His name was Isidore.
Isidore.
He didn't like Isidore, so he changed his name to George. And then where did the Burns? People ask me, where did the Burns come from? The Burns came. It was a coal company, Burns Coal Company. They used to have their coal truck would deliver coal to all the apartments, all the places there. And matter of fact, my brothers and I would follow after the truck, and we'd pick up the pieces of coal so that we would be able to have enough coal to heat up the place in the wintertime. So that's basically my background and story.
Did any of your other siblings go into acting?
No, none of them did. One of my brothers became my manager, and one of my nephews became very popular. He was an agent with one of the big agencies in Hollywood. I had a fellow by the name of Fine, who was my agent. He was also Jack Benny's agent. He's the guy that got me the show, got me into the movie, The Sunshine Boys.
What an amazing career. And then you met Gracie. How'd you meet her?
Well, what happened was, I was backstage. I just broke up an act with a fella, and I was backstage in a vaudeville house, and all of a sudden the door opened, and standing there and walking in is this beautiful, petite young lady, and she had beautiful black hair. She had beautiful eyes, one of each color.
Each color.
And she was absolutely a beautiful lady. And we went to lunch, and at lunch we got to familiarize ourselves with each other, and we decided we would do an act together. I was going to be the comedian, and she was going to feed me the straight lines. So I wrote the act. We finally got the act booked. First time we went on stage, she got all the laughs. The next show we did, she got all the laughs. The third show that day, all the laughs. I went home that night, I rewrote the show, and for the next 40 years, I became Gracie Allen Straight Man. That's how it started.
Well, that's how you read an audience, right?
That's right.
You got to go where it goes.
Exactly. But it was she was perfect for the kind of material that I was able to write over those years.
Who was the actor or actress most that you remember working with?
Well, of course it was Gracie, but
Outside of
I
Gracie.
was very fortunate. My circle of friends included Jack Benny, Red Skelton, and a lot of the old vaudeville actors that people don't remember now. But Benny was one of the very, very closest friend. Benny was just the closest friend that anybody could ever have, Jack and I. And it was a sad day, the day that I lost Jack.
And what was New York like back then? I mean, you talk about what it is now to what old legendary New York.
Well, you know, it was New York was vaudeville houses. It was the garment industry was in New York. You know, I went to school. I went to public school. I left public school when I was 5, in the 5th grade, I had a little problem that was called arithmetic. And I went out and I went to work. I had all sorts of jobs. I wanted to be in the business, so I would try to do things that were related to the business. I became a dancing teacher in a dancing school. And that's how I got to be able to do all those fancy dance steps that Gracie and I used to do.
You left school in 5th grade?
I left.
You never
yeah,
went
sure.
back?
No, never went back. And you know, unfortunately, it was not a mistake, because here I am, 100 and umpteen years later, as a success. But leaving school was difficult, because I never really learned how to read properly. And so when I had to perform in a movie, I would memorize the lines, and I would, when I went in to rehearse, or not to rehearse, to audition for the both of the movies that I did, I would have all the lines memorized, which most actors don't do. They'll memorize a half a dozen lines and then go on to the next thing. But I memorized the entire movie, which kind of spooked out the
amazing.
directors.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing because you got to be able to carry the talent, and it's the consistency. You know, it's easy to do a one-show wonder, but to do it consistently for the number of years that he did it was.
Well, that's how I made all my money, being great.
I know, but arithmetic wasn't your strong suit.
I could add up the numbers on the checks.
I bet you could.
Well, before we wrap this up, we have to introduce Peter Salzer, who is an incredible George Burns, I want to say tribute impersonator, but all of the above, comedian, actor.
Thank you.
Everything you've done has been truly remarkable.
Yeah,
How long have you been impersonating George Burns?
It's been about 20 years. I started impersonating George about 20 years ago. There was an ad in Backstage magazine. They were looking to put on a variety show, pardon me, at the Tropicana in New Jersey, Tropicana Casino, and I sent them my stuff. I said I can do Jack Benny, I can do George Burns, I can do Eddie Cantor, I can do Al Jolson. And on a Saturday night, my wife and I got home from the movies, and there's a message, call us, we want to talk to you about the show. And and these two Italians get on, you know, and they're talking like this, you know. We're very interested in hearing what you got to say. We're going to put the show on the Tropicana. So I said, sure, that sounds good. I said, well, who do you want me to do? She said, well, we like the idea that you got this George Burns character, because he could be like the MC for the other acts that we're doing. I said, fine. He said, well, let me hear you sound like George Burns. I had never done Burns before. And I thought, and I finally said, say goodnight, Gracie. He said, that's great, that's great. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. And the show went on at the Tropicana, and that's how it started. And then from there, I just built up and built on it and more. But that was about the same time that I started my acting career. I've done many commercials. I've done a lot of voiceover work. I've done film work. I thoroughly enjoy acting. It wasn't my career in trying to make a living to support my family. I started off as a radio actor at high school, and then went to college as an engineer. Did that for a couple of years. Went into sales and marketing, and finally, at about the age of about 55 or so, I decided, you know, I really want to be an actor. So I left corporate America and starved. No, at that point I was okay financially, and I was able to get into the acting and study acting, learn how to be an actor, learn how to get into character. I love acting. I don't do very much stage acting anymore because it's just very time consuming. But I love being on television and doing commercials and so on.
Have you done plays off Broadway?
Just one or two. I really haven't done much on Broadway. I never did anything on Broadway. I've done off-Broadway stuff, but that really never interested me. I really like the film work, because for me the film work is easier because you only have to learn one or two pages or half a dozen pages at a time, and I like getting into character. I like being somebody else, and I've studied acting. I've studied acting down here in Florida with a lady by the name of the name leaves me, but it was a South Florida Actors Guild kind of a place where she taught acting. She was a wonderful teacher. Jane Kelly was her name. She passed away about 2 years ago, and she was a wonderful teacher. And she taught you how to get into the character. And one of the things that I hope you noticed it when I was doing the Burns character before was that I approached the Burns character as an actor. When you see me sitting here and being George Burns, I'm try to be George Burns. I don't
Yes.
want to be Peter Salsa, the George Burns impersonator. That's not me. When I become Burns, when I walk in or on stage as George Burns, I feel like I'm George Burns.
Totally different. We were talking before the show,
Yeah.
and how you're going to do your intro and to walk in,
Yes.
and then to see you get into character and do it made a whole lot more sense.
On-stage presence
Right?
is unbelievable.
We're
Well, thank
totally
You know, when you switch
change
back,
it all over.
I wanted people to be able to see that and hear it on the radio. We got to wrap it up. All right. Listen, we got to wrap it up.
How do people get in touch with you, Jeffrey, for booking or for information?
They contact me at jmproductions.biz is the website, or they can email me at jeffreyweinstein1@aol.com. And looking at all of our entertainers and actors such as Peter, I might quickly mention very quickly that Peter was one of the actors that we used in the Starlight Club with Joe Corso's
Yeah.
reading at the Saver Theater right before the pandemic. And Peter did a terrific job at one of the
Thank you.
performers. What was the character you played?
I played the character. This is perfectly cast, Big Red.
Big Red, yeah.
We
Red.
talked about
Well,
Big Red with him.
It was I played the Big Red was the proprietor of the Starlight Cafe, you know. And
Right.
he sort of ran the show there in Queens, you know, many years ago.
Yeah,
you know how they do
yeah,
that.
we
It
went
has
down
been
that.
a pleasure to meet you, Peter, and of course, George Burns, Jeffrey, as always. It's a great show. Check it out live on WWNN.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone. We'll
That's
see you
right.
next time.
And we'll see you. Don't be loud.
Bye-bye.
Breathing through my troubles, trying to be smart, living with another, passion in my heart, partners come and go, always with a twirl.
Thank you for tuning in to Don't Stop the Music. For more information about how to brighten up your stage, contact JM Productions at 954-638-0270 or email President of JM Productions Florida, Jeffrey Weinstein at jeffreyweinstein1@aol.com.